Hey everybody, welcome to the weekend edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Glad to have you aboard for an abbreviated weekend edition. The Maestro flying solo this week, the Conquistador taking another week off. We had a concert this week as opposed to Thanksgiving, botching everything up the week before. This week it was a concert on our normal taping night. That would have been Steel Panther live at Pierre's in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That was last night as I taped this on December the 1st. Concert was November the 30th. This, of course, the weekend edition, your cure for your Friday night hangover. This week hitting Saturday morning, December the 3rd, 2022. Still glad to have you aboard. Hope you tolerate me for about 45 minutes here as I run through music, movies, TV and streaming news, reviews. Going to save some of the good stuff for next week for the return of the Conquistador, but have to discuss in music Jackyl. We finally got back on schedule with the annual family reunion at 8 Second Saloon in Indianapolis, Indiana, last Black Friday. Took my daughter, who just turned 21. Also, the Conquistador took his son, my nephew, also just turned 21 this year. Very, very interesting to see their different reactions, opinions on the show. Of course, with my luck, it turned out that my daughter was the one that was the most uncomfortable and did not like the show. And of course, Dave's son loved it, wants to go back next year. Now, COVID screwed everything up. We missed out a couple years, 2020, 2021. Didn't get to see Jackyl. We had been going each and every year before that for the previous, I believe, 6 years at least. Every Black Friday to the 8 Second Saloon to see Jackyl. This year's show was great. No reason to think it wasn't going to be great, but it was just fun for the first time in 3 years, number one, for the Conquistador and I, and of course his wife, Mrs. C, to get back there and to see Jackyl, and then of course to watch, as I mentioned, the reactions of our kids. Still call them kids, even though, like I said, they just turned 21. Now, Jackyl's set list rarely changes. Now, there were a couple curveballs this time around. Number one, they just put out a CD of mostly live tracks with a couple new songs. That would have been 30 Coming and Hot. So they did play one of the newer songs off of that. That would be All Up in It Now. They also threw in a cover of Grand Funk's We're an American Band, which was very cool. But beyond those two, little changes, little differences, little nuances. Yes, I used the word nuance in reference to Jackyl, which really, they don't seem to fit well together. It was the same. Start off with Blast Off, end with the Lumberjack. In between, you get most of the fantastic debut album, When Will It Rain, Dirty Little Mind, Down on Me, all the ones you know and love, along with some of the newer songs that they've incorporated into their set, like Encore, that we have come to know and love as Jackyl fans, or as they like to call us now, the Chainsaw Mafia. It's really going to be hard for me to ever say anything bad about Jackyl live. They put on such a great show. It's an hour and a half, solid rock and roll. If you go year after year like we do, you could say it gets predictable, but for once a year to get that kind of energy, to get that vibe of fun, Jesse James Dupree, of course, is just one of the best frontmen I've ever seen, and it vast difference from his younger days when I saw them opening for Damn Yankees, when they were first blazing onto the music scene with that debut album that was tearing it up. Of course, Jesse James Dupree was even more wild back then in his youth, playing basically naked except for a guitar in front of what you'd call his naughty bits, embarrassing the hell out of my ex-wife. Maybe now you'll understand why she's my ex-wife. But Jackyl is one of those mid-level bands. They're not going to play sold-out arenas. They're not going to play football stadiums. They're not even going to open for the bands that do that. But they understand who their audience is. They understand that it's important if they play in front of 200 or 2,000 to keep those people engaged, happy, and make sure they leave feeling like they didn't get cheated for a very reasonable ticket price that they paid. So just remember, my moonshine kicks your cocaine's ass, and Jackyl always kicks ass. I'll give Jackyl this latest go round, I'll give him 3 frenzies. Maybe a little bit lower of a grade than normal, but I think it was more because of the surroundings. Not the 8 Second Saloon. They always do a great job of taking care of everybody and making everybody feel welcome, and the staff there is great. It was more just the crowd. You had drunken, stupid old people, believe it or not. Old people doing drunken, stupid things. And I've been adamant about this. Maybe it's because I'm becoming a grumpy old man myself, but over the last few years, the 2 things that have really seemed to ruin concerts for me are, number 1, bad sound. Not the case here. But number 2, rude, stupid people in the audience. Kind of, in a way, wasn't the worst crowd ever. Definitely wasn't the best. They get way too long with this show to drink, and I know 8 Seconds has to make their money, has to sell beer, has to sell the booze. But when you're starting opening act comes on at 8:45, you open the doors at 6. The opener comes out at 8:45. Jackyl doesn't even get on stage till 10:30. It's way too much time for people to drink way too much and get way too stupid. All right, the big news of the week in rock and roll, of course, is Metallica. Metallica is coming back with a vengeance. New album, 72 Seasons, coming out April the 14th, 2023. The first single is out, Lux Eterna. Check that out. Spotify, wherever you listen to your music. And a 22-city global tour spanning 2023 and 2024. Well, they will play 2 nights in every city. Most of them Friday and Sunday. 2 nights, no repeat weekends is what they're calling it, where they are going to play 2 completely different set lists, one Friday, one Sunday, no repeats. Dave Matthews does this, the Dave Matthews Band. I'm sure there's other bands, Pearl Jam, I'm sure has done this in the past, but it's very interesting to see Metallica taking on this model. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not going to go check this out. I'm not. Number one, the only show nearby is Soldier Field in Chicago, and it's not until August of 2024. I am not giving anybody, after what we went through with COVID and all the delays, having tickets that I paid for 3 years for Billy Joel, for the Doobie Brothers. I am not giving anybody willfully my money almost 2 years in advance for a concert, number one. I don't care who they are. But number two, you got to worry about Ticketmaster and Live Nation being involved. Are they going to pull this dynamic pricing crap that screwed over people with Bruce Springsteen? Are they going to have issues like they had with Taylor Swift? But then again, the big factor is just Metallica's gotten too big to the point where I don't want to go see a band in a football stadium where I have to watch a video screen, and that's basically the experience of watching the concert. Now, they're going to do it in the round. They're going to set up the stage in the middle of these football stadiums, like Soldier Field in Chicago, or in 2023, they are playing Ford Field in Detroit. But it's never, even when I was younger, never held any kind of appeal for me. I want to be closer to the band. That's the whole experience. That's the appeal of a concert. Now, I'm not saying I expect to be 5 rows away from Metallica, but I sure as hell don't want to be 5 miles away either. So I'm passing on the Metallica no repeat weekends tour. Plus, I figure I haven't looked at ticket prices. I figure that the money I would end up spending on that for parking, for travel, for tickets, I'm probably going to be able to see at least 2 or 3 more shows for the same price combined this coming summer. I'd rather do that. All right, that's going to do it for the music segment. Segment 1 of the weekend edition is over. Stay tuned. Next up is movies. Going to keep the music theme rolling into the movie segment, and you'll understand why after a quick promo. I'll be right back. When your day of dealing with international intrigue is over and you've settled down in your Aston Martin, call up Sports Frenzy 2.0 on your phone or smart car stereo. Every Thursday, Kevin Dave will take your mind off the megalomaniac who just had a laser pointed at your genitals with the best sports criticism around. And don't forget to listen to the weekend edition every Saturday so you can plan out your entertainment options with the femme fatale of your choice. Grab a martini, shaken, not stirred, and check out Frenzy, Sports Frenzy 2.0. Hey everybody, welcome back to the weekend edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane, flying solo again this week, but Dave will be back next week. Maybe I just won't talk next week and let him catch up on all the movies and the music and the TV and the streaming. But that being said, I promised here in segment 2 a carryover from the music segment, because my main movie review of the week here, as I tape on December the 1st, 2022, and of course this will hit Saturday morning, December the 3rd, is a fantastic rock and roll documentary that just came out recently, finally available on Blu-ray, to rent or to buy digitally. One of the most underrated and, in my opinion, unfairly abused bands of the 80s. Triumph. The movie is Rock and Roll Machine. All three members of Triumph, Gil Moore, Rick Emmett, Mike Levine, participate completely and wholly in this movie. Now, is it a down and dirty look at the band? Controversy and tawdry backstage stories? Absolutely not. I'll warn you right now, if that's what you want, if you want behind the music, if you want something like The Dirt with Motley Crue, this is not for you. This is made more for Triumph fans, people who loved rock and roll back in the 80s. I'm not saying Motley Crue fans didn't like rock and roll back in the 80s, but you're not going to get the hookers, the drug abuse, those type of tawdry stories, divorces, and all those type of things. This is about the band Triumph, and it's a straight-on look at how they came to be, how they formed, briefly touching on when they broke up, what brought them back together for a couple rare shows in the 2000s, including one here within the last 4 years or so, a very exclusive show they did for about 300 diehard Triumph fans at the Metalworks studio up in Canada that they own and founded. So like I said, if you want controversy, you're not going to get it here. If you love rock and roll and you just want to see a great band from beginning to end, guys who still get along, very smart guys, guys who aren't burnt out, guys who didn't destroy their frontal lobe with drugs. This is the type of documentary, type of rock and roll documentary you want to watch. So for me, it was a very pleasant surprise in that respect. I'll admit the lack of controversy, the lack of negativity almost at times makes it feel like some kind of a puff piece. the breakup of Triumph handled very perfunctory. Rick Emmett basically says, I wanted out, I wanted to do my own thing, and I left. That's basically almost all you get when it comes to the breakup of the band. So again, it's more about what they went through in terms of setting up the band, dealing with the music business, dealing with success. And again, for the most part, this is a story of a mature, smart band that was able to navigate brilliantly the pitfalls of the music industry in the 80s, and for the most part, come out unscathed. Two highlights for me. Number one, now, of course, no, the performance, the live performance, Triumph was always known as a phenomenal live band. The one performance everybody knows for sure is the US Festival performance from Triumph. That is legendary. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that look at the Live Aid performance from Queen, and I acknowledge that as being phenomenal, and that is a great, great performance from Freddie Mercury and the boys. But I also pay tribute to Triumph at the US Festival as one of the greatest performances in the 80s and even into the 90s and beyond from a rock band, especially on a huge stage with hundreds of thousands of people watching. But I love the fact that they acknowledge, Triumph in this movie acknowledges something called the American Rock Festival, because I was there. The American Rock Festival happened in Kalamazoo, Michigan, at the Timber Ridge Ski Resort back in the early 80s. And it was a fantastic lineup. And just to see the minute or two of footage that they give you and acknowledge how important this show was in the career of Triumph, I loved it. It made me feel special knowing that I had been there. Now, the sad thing is, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because, number one, traffic for that show was abysmal. Traffic for that show was hell on earth. It took us forever to get in. We barely got in on time for the opening act, who was Accept. We barely got in time to see Accept. We were sitting there up on the top of a ski slope. It seemed like half a mile away from the stage. I mean, there were 100,000 people there, 100,000 people easily. But the lineup was Accept, Rat, Night Ranger, Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne. Here's where I become a hypocrite. As much as I love Triumph, as much as I love this movie, we were so frustrated, my friends and I, at how long it had taken us to get in to the American Rock Festival, that we'd been in the sun all day up on top of that ski slope, that about halfway through Ozzy Osbourne, we said, screw it, let's get out of here. I'd seen Triumph within the last year or two before the American Rock Festival, so I said, okay, fine, let's go. And looking back at it, should we have stayed? Probably, but good Lord, we would have been on the road all night. So it's a regret, but it's not a major regret that we didn't stick around to see Triumph, the headliner, Yes, Triumph was the headliner ahead of Motley Crue, ahead of Ozzy Osbourne, ahead of Night Ranger. But it was very, very cool to see them acknowledge that show that I was at when I was in high school. Then number two, this took some digging, but I wondered why one of the first people that pops up at the beginning of Rock and Roll Machine is Sebastian Bach, of course, former lead singer of Skid Row. And he's at home as they talk to him about Triumph, and he's singing along with one of their songs at the start of the movie. And of course, I love Sebastian Bach. The man is a rock god to me. I think he's fantastic. Got one of the greatest voices in rock history. But I kind of was like, okay, why are they singling out Sebastian Bach here? And they bring in somebody who's an anchor on Fox News and the Trailer Park Boys. And so I figure, okay, they're just going with a wide cross section of celebrities who love Triumph. Then as the movie progresses and we get to the breakup and we see them, Gilmour especially and Mike Levine, talking about Edge of Excess, the one album they did without Rick Emmett, I kind of got curious because I was out on Triumph at that time. Obviously, with Rick Emmett leaving, that was almost the heart and soul. I know Gilmour, obviously, as Rick Emmett professes now, it's Gilmour's band. But when Rick Emmett left, it felt like the heart and soul of the band had been ripped out. I wasn't into Triumph anymore, so I never got into the Edge of Excess brief era of Triumph. But I decided to go on Wikipedia and just look it up. Amazon, of course, doesn't have it unless you want to download the digital version, CDs, albums, the vinyl, can't get it. Sebastian Bach actually sang with Triumph briefly when they toured at the end on that Edge of Excess tour. Can you imagine Sebastian Bach singing Magic Power, Fight the Good Fight? Blew me away. I had never, ever heard that before. So in the end, very pleasant, personal journey back in time musically for me. So again, it depends on who you are, what you like. If you're an 80s music fan like me, you will enjoy Triumph, Rock and Roll Machine. I'll give it 3 frenzies. Again, it's not tawdry. Not a lot of sex and drugs and rock and roll violence, if any, but still a great, moving love letter to the fans of Triumph. So 3 frenzies again for Rock and Roll Machine. Now, before I get into my story time, Uncle Kev's story time, a couple things I want to point out. Number one, if you haven't listened to the bonus episode earlier this week, check that out. I did have a little bit to discuss in terms of entertainment news and specifically movies, talking about the failure of Disney's Strange World and the woke PC implications for Disney and Hollywood moving forward. So jump back a couple days in our catalog, in our library, and check out this week's bonus episode if you want to hear me rant and rave about the idiocy that is the current Disney regime and how they are forcing woke PC garbage down our throats. And also, of course, don't forget to check us out wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Of course, we should be included. And you've obviously already found us somewhere, but you have options that include Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and Audible. So here's story time. Now let's go back again, another tie into segment 1, where I was talking about Jackyl and talking about how I got to see this concert with my daughter, who had just turned 21. Now, here's the thing. I've seen a ton of concerts with my daughter before. So this wasn't like the first concert I'd ever seen with her. But number one, she's 21. She was able to actually go to a bar concert. And then number two, the whole Jackyl experience. Just, I thought it would be something that we would be able to share together, something I could share with her, given how many times I've seen the band, how much I enjoy the family reunion every Black Friday at the 8 Second Saloon in Indianapolis. And of course, it went miserably, horribly bad because while I think I've helped to shape her musical tastes, and she does have a passion for music like I do, at some point there was a fork in the road where we went two separate ways, for the most part. There are certain bands that we both still like. We both like the Counting Crows. We both like Kings of Leon. But when it came to a band like Jackyl, just not her cup of tea. Whereas for me, that's Nirvana. That's heaven. Yeah, not Nirvana. Much better than Nirvana. The band. So following up on that, while she was here for that concert, visiting from college, we also sat down and watched a movie together. And I figured again, just like with Jackyl, why not try to expose her to something that I found unbelievably cool, unbelievably formative in this case, my views and my take on movies and specifically screenwriting and comedy. Now, there was a short list of movies that I was going to choose from, and we tried to have some fun with it. This was Thanksgiving night. So I put 4 movies down on 4 pieces of paper, and I had her pick one. And I will not tell you what the other 3 movies were, but the one she ended up picking was Kevin Smith's Mallrats. And I was excited because I thought of all the 4 I had selected, that would be the one that she would like the most. I truly, truly believe that as we get here deeper into Uncle Kev's story time. I truly believed out of the 4 movies I picked, that was the one she was going to find the most enjoyable. Now, of course, all 4, I put 4 of my favorite movies, 4 of my favorite comedies of all time on those 4 pieces of paper. So I would have been happy watching any of the 4, but I figured Mallrats would be the one that she would get the most. And boy, was I completely and totally 100% wrong. Just like with Jackyl, she had a miserable time watching Mallrats. Now, for those of you who don't know Mallrats is Kevin Smith's second movie after Clerks, as opposed to the black and white, low budget that you had with Clerks. You get full color and a much larger budget with Mallrats. Of course, Mallrats stars Jason Lee, Shannon Doherty, Joey Lauren Adams, Ben Affleck. Now, I love Clerks and Mallrats. And I love almost all of Kevin Smith's movies that he's written and directed. Not either or, the ones that he's done both on. And you guys know the Conquistador and I, a few months back, went to go see Clerks 3 in theaters, the Fathom Events showings. But I can't tell you how depressing it was to not hear her laugh but once. Once she laughed in the entire run of the movie. She laughed briefly at the chocolate-covered pretzel scene. And again, I thought I had this all picked out perfectly. She loved watching My Name is Earl, of course, starring Jason Lee, star of Mallrats. Ethan Suplee, of course, starred in both. If you don't recognize the actor's name, he's the guy in Mallrats who's staring at the picture in the mall, trying to see the sailboat. I thought I had this picked out perfectly. And again, when she randomly picked this movie out of 4, I thought it was a win-win, no-brainer situation, and it turns out to be an abject disaster. That being said, personally, seeing Mallrats for probably the 20th time, maybe I'm overstating it a little bit, but not by much. Again, one of my favorite movies of all time. Favorite comedies of all time. Mallrats is a strong 3.5 frenzies for me. I always have an internal debate about which one I like more, Clerks or Mallrats. My two favorites, his first 2 movies. Why don't I give it 4? It's watching it now, it's a little tiny bit aged and dated. It's worn a little bit down. It's showing a little bit of its cracks and wrinkles, but it's still 3.5. It's still phenomenal. And it's still funnier than hell. And it's still very uncomfortable in the backseat of a Volkswagen, kids. So let that be a life lesson to all you parents out there dealing with kids in high school or in college. You're having trouble relating to them and you're trying to bring them in on some of the pop culture nuggets that you enjoyed. And when it fails miserably or it goes completely over their heads or they try to show you something that they find that's engaging and appealing and you go, what the holy fuck was that? Kind of like with me and my daughter and the White Lotus. Just remember, you can move on. You can still have mutual respect. Even though your kid might be turning into a hippy-dippy snowflake, hopefully they don't go too far down that path where you guys still can't bond on some things. Unfortunately for me, it just wasn't Mallrats. All right, story time's over. Next week, I will give you my promised review. I know I said I was going to do it this week, but story time with Mallrats and Triumph just seemed too good to keep simmering for another week or two. So next week, I will give you my review of the Paramount Plus recent box office smash, horror movie Smile. One segment left, recapping some of our best current shows on TV and streaming. I will also indulge, since Dave's not here, in my love of wrestling and give you my take and my recap of last weekend's Survivor Series War Games, the WWE extravaganza. So hang out through one quick promo, one more promo. I'll be right back, and we will wrap things up here on the weekend edition. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. Are you tired of getting body slammed by the mainstream sports media? Are you sick of their lame trash talk? Check out Sports Frenzy 2.0 with a tag team of the Maestro and the Conquistador. Pile drive those jackasses into submission. Available on all major podcast hosts, including Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Apple, Overcast, and Castbox. Kevin Dave slap a figure 4 on all the major sports networks who lie, kiss ass, and refuse to take names. New episodes drop every Thursday with new weekend edition episodes every Saturday. And that's the bottom line, because Sports Frenzy said so. All right, everybody, time to put a bow and a ribbon on this thing. Yeah, it's December, starting to get into the Christmas spirit. I think I've alluded to this over the last few weeks. We might actually be reviewing some Christmas music for you. I know for a fact that we mentioned we were going to review The Offspring's current Christmas song, and I'm going to hold off on that again for another week until the Conquistador gets back. And we're also holding off. I did not forget about the Doors' lost track, Paris Blues. We'll have that coming up for you. I promise. But for now, final segment here. Television and streaming, we've got a couple really significant moments of silence. And we are going to stay somewhat positive this week. As much as I love doing the Red Foreman Dumbasses of the Week, Hollywood has been fairly quiet in terms of stupidity. So I do not have any Red Foreman Dumbasses for you this week. But TV and streaming. Titans about ready to wrap up part 1 of season 4. As I tape this on December the 1st, the final episode of part 1, season 4, episode 6 dropped today. But through episode 5, I'm still not completely sold on this season yet. And again, a great superhero movie or a great superhero show can only be as good as the villain. And Titans season 4 right now, I'm still having issues with Mother Mayhem and, of course, the impending creation / birth / arrival of Brother Blood. and I said this last week, a mediocre season of Titans is better than most of the stuff out there, but I'm still not convinced that this is a strong season of the Titans. Hasn't been action-packed, been a lot of cheesy special effects with snakes. Like I said, next week we will be closing out the book on the first part of season 4. Once I sit down and watch episode 6, and I've told you I can't stand how these channels, these networks split seasons. It gets too confusing, too much of a gap. You lose interest. And Dave and I have ranted and raved about how we don't like how HBO Max and DC are doing this with season 4 of Titans and Doom Patrol, respectively. Now, next week, as Titans goes away for a while, season 4 of Doom Patrol kicks in. So, of course, once that starts, we'll be reviewing that for you week by week. But right now, season 4 of Titans, it's good, it's solid, but it's not great. Now, Tulsa King, I have talked about 3 seasons or 3 episodes into season 1. The big news this week is that after those 3 episodes, Tulsa King has already been renewed by Paramount Plus for season 2. And that's great because, number one, I love these shows that Taylor Sheridan's putting out. Of course, Yellowstone, all the prequel shows, Mayor of Kingstown, and now Tulsa King. These are great shows. He brings in massive stars, whether it be Kevin Costner, Jeremy Renner, or in Tulsa King's case, Sylvester Stallone. And Tulsa King, while it won't blow your doors off, it seems like it's got a slow build going. At least in the early episodes, you're seeing how, with Stallone's character getting dumped in Tulsa, having just gotten out of prison, of course, a New York guy, a capo in the mob, how he's adjusting to creating business in Tulsa. And I mentioned how in a past episode, he is, number one, he stepped his foot into the marijuana business and he's taken over a dispensary there. And now he's starting to look at very odd situations involving, believe it or not, helium balloons at rock festivals. I'm not going to go any further into episode 3 than that. But I do have to admit, I like the writing in how Stallone's character is trying to create his own criminal empire in the Dust Bowl. Then, of course, Yellowstone. Again, rumors are that they're going to do the same thing with Yellowstone that they're doing with Titans and Doom Patrol. They're going to split season 5 up into 2 separate chunks. And again, I say there is nothing that will kill a series quicker and kill interest in a series quicker than doing this kind of garbage. Of course, Yellowstone is such a huge, popular success. they might be able to get away with it for a while. Maybe this season. The one thing I do want to say about episode 4, the last episode released, I got to be honest with you, kids. I have got to be honest with you. This episode might be the one that sours me a bit on Yellowstone, and I'll tell you why. I think Kelly Riley is a phenomenal actress in this show. I think she's perfectly cast as Beth Dutton. But it's gotten to the point with the writing where they have made her so unlikable and so evil that I wish she would just go away. And I'm sure in some respects, that's the reaction the writers want. Because the Dutton family, for the most part, is not likable. You do admire their loyalty. You do admire the fact that they just want to be left alone and left to their own devices. But it just seems to go beyond that. And yes, you get a visceral impact from the acting and the writing. And that's, again, something that obviously is a positive for the producers of the show. But this episode 4 of season 5, just went a little too far for me. Where I can't stand Beth Dutton anymore at all. Yes, her father is one of the most, if not the most powerful man in the state. And yes, her husband is a badass. Rip is a badass. And of course, he's going to protect her no matter what. But I think even Rip, the character, realizes that she's uncontrollable and she has got an evil streak that would give Satan a run for his money. She is, again, last time I'll say it, one of the most detestable, nasty characters I've ever seen in movies or television. And I don't know how much longer viewers will put up with it. At some point, she's got to get some semblance of a comeuppance. They've got to knock her down a peg or two. Because if they don't and they just keep letting her run like she's been running, it's not boding well for the future of the show, in my opinion, along with splitting the seasons. All right, so before we move into my breakdown of Survivor Series War Games, since the Conquistador's not here, I can actually talk to you guys about wrestling and not worry about getting the stink eye. I know you can't see the stink eye on a podcast, but believe me, I get the stink eye when I start talking about wrestling. But before that, one great TV and streaming note from this week. Netflix has finally released a trailer and a premiere date for That 90s Show. That 90s Show will debut January the 19th, 2023 on Netflix. Of course, That 90s Show is a sequel to the phenomenal That 70s Show, one of my favorite comedies of all time. You know we love it here on Sports Frenzy. We've devoted for years and years and decades our closing segment, the Red Foreman Dumbasses of the Week, to the patriarch of the Foreman family. So I cannot wait Cannot wait. I will sign back up for Netflix. Coming up soon, not only for that 90s show, of course, I want to see The Glass Onion at the end of December, but cannot wait for that 90s show on Netflix in January. Okay, my quick recap. I will not go crazy, nutsy, cuckoo when it comes to my wrestling talk. You guys know I usually only talk about the premium live events, as they're called now, on Peacock for WWE, as opposed to when they used to be pay-per-views. But Survivor Series War Games was a very interesting pay-per-view this past Saturday. And I have to admit, the women's fight and the men's fight both were very, very cool. Don't want to get into the weeds, don't want to go into a lot of detail, but of course, basically, both matches boiled down to a 5-on-5 in a double-sized ring. The big thing to come out of it, of course, was on the men's side. The Bloodline, of course, Roman Reigns and the Usos and Solo Sikoa. Could they trust their recent addition, their fifth member, Sami Zayn? And he proved his loyalty. Or did he? It looks like he did. From what I could tell, though, it looks like Solo Sikoa, who was in Sami Zayn's corner here up until recently, looks like he's now the one that has his doubts. In terms of belts changing hands in other matches, kind of surprising, kind of shocking that in the triple threat match with Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, and Austin Theory, that Austin Theory becomes a two-time United States heavyweight champion already in his young career. Now, we'll see how long that lasts. One of my criticisms with the WWE has always been everybody gets a belt. Everybody seems to get a belt. So championships in the WWE don't impress me as much as they do in AEW. That being said, I think AEW goes too far the other way. I have to admit, though, with AEW, and I'm not watching a lot of AEW right now. I had my little run here reliving my youth watching Raw and SmackDown and Dynamite and Rampage. I've had to cut all that way, way down because it's just ridiculous and unnecessary, and there are better things to do with your life. But very, very cool to see the ultimate heel in AEW, MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, win the AEW World Championship. That dude is so good at being a jackass, so good at being an asshole. He is one of the greatest heels I have ever seen. He's up there with the $1 Million Man. If you want to call Roman Reigns a heel, you can. I don't think he's necessarily a heel. I think Roman Reigns plays the middle of the road very well. But I think it's awesome. It's awesome that they finally decided maybe Jon Moxley shouldn't hold on to the belt for years and years and years in AEW. I'm sorry, I'm not a Jon Moxley guy. I know he has his history with the Shield in WWE, and people love him. He wears on me real quick. So, very cool that now you've got MJF as the AEW World Champion and Chris Jericho, one of my favorites, as the Ring of Honor World Champion over in AEW. But again, like I was alluding to, AEW, the quote-unquote owners, Jericho, Kenny Omega's now back, the Young Bucks. Kudos to them for creating a very successful alternate to WWE. But you guys shouldn't win the belts all the time. That's not how it's supposed to work. It's predictable and it's boring. And that's probably why I don't really get into AEW like I did when it first started. All right, like I said, no dumbasses this week. So even though I did get to mention Red Foreman talking about that 90s show, we do not have any Red Foreman dumbasses of the week here in the entertainment world on the weekend edition. So come on, Jimmy Kimmel. Come on, John Oliver. Step up your game. Say something stupid. Do something stupid. So next week, we've got some dumbasses for Red Foreman. Now, that being said, to close out the weekend edition, we do have a couple moments of silence in the music world. Very significant moments of silence. First off, Irene Cara, most well known for singing the theme song from the 80s hit movie Flashdance. Of course, her big hit song was Flashdance, What a Feeling. Back in the 80s, of course, movie soundtracks were big, big business. They've kind of tailed off a little bit from what they used to be. But I mean, back then you had the Flashdance soundtrack, you had Footloose. Of course, in the late 70s, you had Saturday Night Fever and Grease. But Irene Cara's title hit from the movie Flashdance was a massive, massive hit. Rest in peace, Irene Cara. Thoughts and prayers to family and friends. And then shockingly, yesterday, again, as I taped this on December the 1st, taping it a little bit later than I normally would, this wouldn't have even made this week's weekend edition if it wasn't for the delay we've had in taping due to the Steel Panther concert review next week. But one of the key members of one of the most iconic bands in rock and roll over the past 50 years, and I said this to a friend of mine today, I didn't understand why this didn't generate a little bit more publicity on the news websites and the news networks than it did. And maybe it's because we're becoming desensitized to the fact that all of these rock icons from the 70s and the 80s are passing away with more regularity. But Christine McVie of Fleetwood Mac passed away. Now, of course, the music websites are covering it with an appropriate, in my opinion, an appropriate level of respect. And I'm not even a Fleetwood Mac fan. Keep that in mind when I say this, because I still know who from my generation of music, who was influential, who were the big names. As much as I despise and I hate Roger Waters and Neil Young, if they died, I would, of course, expect a lot of coverage, a lot of peers to express condolences and tributes. But it just seems a little too quiet for me here when it comes to the passing of Christine McVie. I would have expected a little more reverence and a little more honor and respect for, again, one of the key members of Fleetwood Mac. And again, last time I'll say it, this is coming from somebody who wasn't a huge Fleetwood Mac fan. So thoughts and prayers to the Fleetwood Mac family, Christine McVie's family and friends. So that's going to do it for the weekend edition, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me. Without the Conquistador, he'll be back next week to, of course, ridicule and abuse all of my opinions and all of my views on music, movies, and TV and streaming. We'll have our review of Steel Panther live in Fort Wayne. We'll also be reviewing John Sanford's latest book, Righteous Prey. Have a great weekend. Get over that hangover. I'll talk to you, along with Dave, next week.